Elena.
Your hand needs immediate treatment.
I'm fine. Please, don't tell anyone you saw it.
An undercover Hell's Angel saw a waitress hiding a broken hand. What he did next stunned everyone. When undercover ATF Agent Marcus Steel noticed the waitress serving coffee with obviously broken fingers, he never expected that helping her would expose the human trafficking ring he'd spent 2 years trying to infiltrate. The Crossroads Diner squatted beside Interstate 40 like a neon-lit refuge for truckers, bikers, and the kind of people who traveled highways at 3 a.m. for reasons they'd rather not discuss. October rain hammered the corrugated roof while fluorescent lights buzzed over cracked vinyl booths that had witnessed decades of desperate conversations. Through cigarette smoke and coffee steam, Agent Marcus Steel watched his targets laugh over late-night breakfast, unaware their prospect was federal law enforcement closing the net around their operation. At 34, Marcus had spent 18 months undercover with the Desert Rats MC, earning his prospect patch through staged crimes and manufactured loyalty that fooled everyone except the mirror. His ATF handlers knew him as Agent Steel. The bikers called him Reaper for reasons that kept him awake some nights, questioning how much of his soul this assignment had cost. 2 years of intelligence gathering had revealed Desert Rat's involvement in weapons trafficking, drug distribution, and something darker, that federal prosecutors needed evidence to prove a human trafficking network that moved women across state lines using motorcycle rallies as cover for transportation and biker clubhouses as temporary holding facilities. Tonight's meeting at Crossroads Diner was Marcus's chance to document leadership discussing upcoming cargo shipments that would finally provide prosecutable evidence. His phone recorded conversations while hidden cameras captured faces that would soon appear on federal indictments. Everything depended on maintaining his cover for 6 more hours until coordinated raids dismantled the entire network. But sometimes, the most carefully planned operations unraveled because human decency demanded action that compromised everything else. The waitress who refilled Marcus's coffee moved with practiced invisibility, but 18 months of observing criminal behavior had taught him to notice what others missed: the way she favored her left hand, held her right arm close to her body, and winced when pouring coffee, despite trying to hide obvious pain behind professional smiles that never reached her terrified eyes. "More coffee, hun?" the waitress asked, her voice barely above whisper as she approached the Desert Rat's table. Marcus noticed her name tag, Elena, and the way she carefully kept her right hand hidden beneath the coffee pot, using only her left to pour. "Thanks, sweetheart," replied Viper Johnson, Desert Rat's president, his eyes following Elena with predatory interest that made Marcus's undercover persona clench invisible fists. "You doing okay tonight? Look a little shaky." Elena's face went pale. "I'm fine, sir. Just tired." But Marcus had seen those fear patterns before: domestic abuse victims, trafficking survivors, women trapped in situations where showing weakness invited worse treatment. Elena's broken fingers weren't accident, they were message. When Elena retreated to the kitchen, Marcus excused himself for bathroom break, following her instead. He found her in the storage room, cradling her obviously broken right hand while tears streamed down bruised cheeks she'd covered with makeup. "Elena," Marcus said quietly, causing her to spin around with panic of someone caught being human. "Your hand needs medical attention." "I'm fine," she lied, backing against shelving stocked with industrial coffee supplies. Please don't tell anyone you saw. Who did this to you? Marcus asked with gentle authority that came from years of interviewing victims who'd lost hope in system's ability to protect them. Elena studied Marcus with desperate calculation, trying to determine if this leather-clad biker represented salvation or additional threat to survival that already balanced on knife's edge of violence and fear. "You're one of them," she whispered, noting his desert rat's prospect patches. "Why would you care about broken Waitress?" Marcus faced decision that could compromise 2 years of undercover work, but couldn't ignore human suffering happening in front of him. Because some things matter more than club business. Elena's tears intensified. "You don't understand. If they find out I talk to anyone about what happens here, what they do to girls like me..." Her incomplete sentence carried weight of experiences Marcus had spent months gathering evidence to prosecute human trafficking operation that used highway diners as recruitment sites where desperate women were identified, groomed, and transported to locations where their suffering generated profits for criminal organizations. "Elena, I can help you," Marcus said, knowing that promise might destroy his investigation, but unable to watch victims suffer while he collected evidence. "But I need to know what you're involved in." Elena looked toward kitchen, where desert rats continued their meeting about cargo shipments, her fear visible despite makeup that couldn't hide the bruising around her throat that suggested strangulation attempts. "They bought me," she whispered. The revelation hit Marcus like physical blow. Elena wasn't employee, but trafficking victim forced into servitude at diner that served as front for criminal operation he'd been investigating. Her broken hand was punishment for some perceived defiance. "Who bought you?" Marcus asked, his undercover training warring with human instinct to protect someone being exploited by people he'd spent months earning trust from. "The man you came in with," Elena replied, glancing toward Viper Johnson. "I tried to run last week." This was a reminder about what happens to girls who don't appreciate their situations. Marcus processed implications. His target had just been revealed as Elena's direct abuser, making any rescue attempt obvious threat to undercover operation that federal prosecutors needed to dismantle entire trafficking network. "Elena, there are 23 other girls being held at different locations," Marcus said, making decision that prioritized immediate victim over broader investigation. "If I help you escape tonight, can you provide information that helps federal agents save them?" Elena's eyes widened with recognition that this desert rat's prospect wasn't what he appeared to be. "You're police? Federal agent, and you're about to become most important witness in human trafficking case that's been building for 2 years. But Elena's expression shifted from hope to terror as she realized the implications. "If Viper discovers you're federal, he'll kill us both tonight, and those 23 girls will disappear before any raids happen." Marcus understood the stakes saving Elena might doom the other victims. If Viper detected law enforcement infiltration and activated protocols that moved evidence and eliminated witnesses. Sometimes doing the right thing requires risking everything you've worked to achieve. Marcus returned to Desert Rat's table with Elena's desperate situation weighing against his federal mission, knowing that any obvious concern for trafficking victim would expose his law enforcement identity to criminals who'd killed federal agents before. "Reaper, you look troubled," observed Chains Rodriguez, Desert Rat's enforcer whose job involved maintaining discipline through violence that left permanent reminders. Something bothering you about tonight's business? Just thinking about logistics, Marcus replied carefully, aware that Elena was watching from kitchen with expression mixing hope and terror about whether her confession had doomed them both. Viper resumed discussion about upcoming shipments, while Marcus documented details his ATF handlers needed to coordinate raids that would rescue trafficking victims across 4 states. But every detail about criminal operations reminded him that Elena suffered under these men's control right now. 20 girls moving through Phoenix next week, Viper continued, unaware he was describing federal evidence to Undercover Agent. New merchandise from Mexico, quality stuff that'll bring premium prices at rallies. Marcus's training kept his expression neutral, while his conscience screamed about humans being described as merchandise by men who saw women as commodities rather than people deserving protection rather than exploitation. Elena refilled water glasses, her broken hand hidden but visible to Marcus, who recognized signs of systematic abuse designed to break spirits rather than just bones. The diner's atmosphere changed when 2 additional bikers arrived, Desert Rats members Marcus hadn't expected, creating complications for evening that was supposed to provide final evidence before coordinated federal raids. "Tank, Diesel, you're early," Viper said, acknowledging new arrivals whose presence suggested changes to trafficking operation that Marcus hadn't anticipated. "Got problems," Tank announced grimly. "Federal task force hit our Albuquerque operation 3 hours ago, seized everything, arrested 12 people, recovered evidence that compromises entire network." Marcus felt ice form in his stomach. If federal raids had already begun, his undercover operation was either blown or accidentally compromised by parallel investigations he hadn't been briefed about. "How much do feds know?" Viper demanded, his paranoia spiking in ways that made Elena's presence increasingly dangerous to her survival. "Everything about transportation routes, safe houses, financial operations," Diesel replied. "Someone's been feeding information to law enforcement for months." The implication was clear. Desert Rats suspected federal infiltration, making Marcus's cover precarious and Elena's safety dependent on his ability to maintain deception while planning her rescue. Viper's eyes swept room with predatory assessment, landing on Elena with suspicion that suggested trafficking victims might become liability rather than asset if federal heat intensified. "Chains, take our waitress to back office," Viper ordered with casual authority that treated Elena as property rather than person. "If feds are closing in, loose ends need tying up." Marcus understood the euphemism. Elena would be murdered to prevent her testimony from supporting federal prosecution of trafficking charges that carried life sentences. "Boss, maybe I should handle cleanup," Marcus volunteered, hoping to position himself as Elena's protector rather than executioner. "Been proving my loyalty, ready for more serious responsibilities." Viper studied Marcus with calculation that could either advance his undercover status or expose his law enforcement identity. "Reaper, you got stomach for wet work?" The question tested Marcus's commitment to criminal organization while offering opportunity to save Elena's life by assuming responsibility for her execution that he had no intention of carrying out. "Earned my road name for reasons," Marcus replied with manufactured coldness that disguised his determination to protect trafficking victim from monsters he'd spent months gaining trust from. "Handle it, Viper decided. Make sure she can't testify about operations she's witnessed here. Marcus nodded acceptance while calculating escape routes that would get Elena to safety before desert rats discovered his true identity and activated protocols that eliminated both witnesses and federal infiltrators. Marcus escorted Elena toward back office while desert rats discussed relocation plans that would move trafficking operations beyond federal task force reach. Elena understood what cleanup meant, her terror visible despite attempts to maintain dignity in face of imminent murder. "Please," Elena whispered as they walked through kitchen toward office, where Viper expected Marcus to eliminate witness whose testimony could destroy entire criminal network. "I have sister in Mexico. If I die, she'll never know what happened to me." Marcus activated emergency signal that would alert ATF handlers to abort undercover operation while requesting immediate tactical support for agent and civilian in extreme danger. "Elena, I'm getting you out of here," Marcus said quietly, knowing his words ended 18 months of undercover work, but preserved life that mattered more than prosecutorial statistics. "But your friends, they're not my friends," Marcus replied, revealing federal badge that transformed him from Desert Rat's prospect into ATF agent whose cover had just been blown to protect trafficking victim. "And you're about to help me save 23 other women." Elena stared at Badge with expression mixing relief and terror relief at discovering unexpected ally. Terror at understanding that rescue attempt would trigger violent response from criminals who'd killed federal agents and witnesses before. Sometimes the choice between justice and survival comes down to which you can live with and which you can't. Marcus's emergency signal reached ATF tactical team position 2 miles away, but response time meant 15 minutes before backup arrived. 15 minutes to keep Elena alive while surrounded by armed criminals who'd kill both of them if they discovered federal infiltration. "What's taking so long?" Viper called from main dining area, his impatience suggesting suspicion about Marcus's delay in executing Elena according to orders. "Making sure job's done right," Marcus replied, positioning himself between Elena and office door while calculating defensive options in environment designed for serving coffee, not surviving gunfights. But Elena's terror had given way to desperate courage as she realized this might be her only chance to help other trafficking victims. "Agent Steel, there's something you need to know about tonight's meeting." "What?" "They're not just discussing transportation. 23 girls are being held in basement beneath this diner, waiting for transport to Phoenix tomorrow morning." The revelation changed everything. Elena wasn't just witness to trafficking operation. She was informant with intelligence about immediate rescue situation that couldn't wait for coordinated federal raids. "How many guards?" Marcus asked, understanding that saving Elena meant simultaneously rescuing 23 additional victims while outnumbered by armed criminals who'd fight to protect multi-million-dollar operation. 2 guards in basement, but Viper has keys. Girls are locked in storage room, some injured, all terrified. Marcus processed tactical situation. 6 Desert Rats members upstairs, 2 guards downstairs, 23 victims requiring evacuation, backup still 10 minutes away, and his cover blown the moment he failed to execute Elena as ordered. "Reaper, you coming back or do we need to check your work?" Chains Rodriguez appeared in kitchen doorway, his suspicion evident as he noted Marcus and Elena still alive despite orders for elimination. Marcus drew service weapon he'd concealed throughout 18 months undercover. His federal authority finally revealed to criminals who'd trusted him enough to discuss murders in his presence. "ATF! Everyone on the ground!" Marcus shouted, knowing his command would trigger gunfight rather than compliance from men who faced life sentences if captured alive. Chains reached for pistol while Elena screamed, her broken hand forgotten as survival instincts overrode pain from injuries that had been inflicted to maintain control over trafficking victim who'd never stopped hoping for rescue. Gunfire erupted through kitchen as Marcus engaged armed criminals while protecting Elena from crossfire that could kill both of them before backup arrived to support federal agent whose cover had been sacrificed to save lives that mattered more than prosecutorial evidence. "Elena, get to basement and unlock those storage rooms," Marcus called while exchanging fire with Chains, whose tactical training from military service made him dangerous opponent in close quarters combat. "I don't have keys." "Viper has them," Marcus replied, understanding that rescuing 23 trafficking victims required neutralizing Desert Rat's president who'd rather kill everyone than face federal prosecution for crimes that carried death penalty. The kitchen became battlefield as federal agent fought criminal organization while civilian tried to reach other victims whose survival depended on courage from broken Waitress who'd found strength to act despite months of systematic abuse designed to destroy hope. ATF tactical team breached diner through main entrance as Marcus engaged multiple Desert Rats members in kitchen firefight that determined whether trafficking victims would be rescued or executed to eliminate witnesses to federal crimes. "Federal agents, drop your weapons," team leader announced, while flash-bang grenades disoriented criminals who'd planned to eliminate evidence by murdering 24 witnesses in basement massacre that would have covered their escape. Viper attempted to reach basement stairway with keys that would either unlock rescue or enable mass murder of trafficking victims who could testify about criminal operations spanning multiple states and organizations. Marcus intercepted Viper's escape route, their confrontation deciding fate of Elena and 23 other women whose lives hung in balance of gunfight between federal agent and criminal leader who'd built fortune through human suffering. "You cost me millions," Viper snarled while firing at Marcus, his shots going wide due to tactical training that emphasized intimidation over accuracy. "You cost those women everything," Marcus replied, his return fire more precise due to federal training that prioritized protection of innocent life over criminal profit margins. Elena used chaos of tactical assault to reach basement, where 23 trafficking victims waited in locked storage room, their rescue dependent on broken Waitress who'd found courage to help others despite her own trauma and injuries that made movement painful, but not impossible. Sometimes courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite fear, because others depend on your strength. ATF tactical team secured diner's main floor while Marcus and Elena descended to basement, where 23 trafficking victims awaited rescue that had seemed impossible until undercover agent sacrificed career to save lives that criminal justice system existed to protect. "Elena, stay behind me," Marcus instructed while clearing basement corridor that led to storage room where women had been held in conditions designed to break spirits through systematic dehumanization. Viper's keys opened locks that had separated victims from freedom, revealing young women ranging from teenagers to women in their 30s, all bearing signs of abuse that documented criminal enterprise's systematic cruelty. "We're federal agents," Marcus announced to terrified women who'd learned to expect violence from men in authority positions. "You're safe now. We're here to take you home." But rescue operation faced logistical challenge, 24 traumatized women requiring medical attention, psychological support, and protection from criminal organization that would seek revenge against witnesses whose testimony could destroy entire network. Elena served as translator for Spanish-speaking victims, while Marcus coordinated with ATF team leader about medical response and victim protection protocols that would keep trafficking survivors safe during prosecution phase. "Agent Steel, we've got deceased suspects upstairs and 24 witnesses requiring immediate medical evaluation," team leader Sarah Martinez reported, while paramedics prepared to treat victims of systematic abuse. "How many desert rats in custody?" Marcus asked, knowing that successful prosecution required capturing entire leadership structure rather than just eliminating immediate threats to victim safety. "All 6 members detained, substantial evidence seized, and intelligence about network operations spanning 12 states," Martinez replied. "Your 18-month infiltration provided foundation for largest trafficking bust in ATF history." Elena listened to federal agents discuss case that would bring justice for crimes she'd witnessed, her broken hand finally receiving medical attention that had been delayed by need to maintain appearances that concealed systematic abuse. Agent Steel, victim interviews revealed trafficking network extends beyond Desert Rats membership. Martinez continued, processing intelligence that expanded federal investigation beyond single motorcycle club into organized crime conspiracy involving multiple criminal organizations. Elena provided critical information about transportation routes, safe house locations, and financial operations that enabled trafficking network to move women across state lines while avoiding law enforcement detection through sophisticated counter-surveillance methods. "There are more locations," Elena explained while receiving treatment for injuries that documented months of systematic abuse. "Girls held in Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, all connected to motorcycle rallies where customers pay premium prices for services." Marcus realized his undercover operation had uncovered tip of iceberg rather than complete criminal enterprise, meaning Elena and other survivors would require long-term protection, while federal agents dismantled network that generated millions through human exploitation. "Elena, testifying against these people carries serious risks," Marcus warned. "They've killed witnesses before." Elena studied faces of 23 women she'd helped rescue, understanding that her testimony could prevent other women from experiencing systematic abuse that had defined her existence for months that felt like years. "Agent Steel, I spent every day hoping someone would save me," Elena said with quiet determination. "Now I have chance to save others. That's worth whatever risks come with testifying." Her decision inspired other trafficking survivors to cooperate with federal prosecution despite legitimate fears about criminal retaliation against witnesses whose testimony would destroy billion-dollar enterprise built on human suffering. Marcus watched Elena transform from terrified victim into empowered witness, whose courage would bring justice not just for her own abuse, but for systematic crimes affecting hundreds of women across multiple states and criminal organizations. "Elena, witness protection will provide safety during prosecution phase," Martinez assured while coordinating with U.S. Marshal Service about relocating trafficking survivors to secure locations. 2 years later, Elena's testimony had resulted in federal convictions of 37 defendants involved in trafficking network that spanned 15 states and generated over $200 million through systematic human exploitation. Marcus attended ceremony where Elena received Presidential Award for Courage in Law Enforcement. Her broken hand healed, but scars, serving as reminder of suffering that had motivated her to help other victims find justice through federal prosecution. Agent Steel, you saved more than my life when you chose to help me, Elena said during a award ceremony attended by other trafficking survivors whose courage had dismantled criminal network. You saved 23 other women and prevented countless future victims. Marcus nodded, understanding that sacrificing undercover operation had been correct decision despite professional costs that included reassignment to different ATF division and loss of career advancement opportunities. Desert Rat's trafficking operation had been replaced by federal victim support services that provided counseling, job training, and legal assistance to survivors rebuilding lives after systematic exploitation that had stolen years of freedom and dignity. Elena established nonprofit organizations supporting trafficking survivors while serving as advocate for federal legislation strengthening penalties for human trafficking crimes and improving victim protection services. Marcus's sacrifice of undercover operation enabled federal prosecution of largest human trafficking network in ATF history, resulting in life sentences for criminal leaders while liberating over 300 victims from systematic exploitation. Elena became federal witness coordinator, using her experience to help other trafficking survivors navigate legal system while testifying against criminal organizations. The Crossroads Diner was converted into Federal Victim Services Center, providing counseling, job training, and legal assistance to women rebuilding lives after exploitation. Marcus received ATF Medal of Valor while transitioning to victim advocacy role that honored his commitment to protecting vulnerable populations. 5 years later, Elena's advocacy had influenced federal legislation strengthening trafficking penalties, while Marcus's victim-centered approach became ATF standard for undercover operations involving human exploitation crimes. Their partnership proved that law enforcement success should be measured not just by prosecutions achieved, but by lives saved and dignity restored to those society often overlooks. They learned that sometimes the most important victories require sacrificing career advancement for moral principles, that protecting one person's humanity can create ripple effects that transform entire systems designed to serve justice, rather than statistics, healing, rather than headlines. Sometimes the most important victories require sacrificing career advancement for moral principles. Protecting one person's humanity can transform entire systems designed to serve justice rather than statistics.